It's Batman.
Hey, look, it's Batman!
Oh, did you see that? Batman!
Damn.
Wow!
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso. And it's not every day that I get to take a look at a Batman property I'm completely unfamiliar with. But today is one of those days. I actually hadn't even heard of this series until about 2 years ago, when at the time I was looking for some B-roll in an upcoming Batman video I was making, go figure, and that's when I stumbled upon Batman Unlimited. The Batman movies that exist only to promote a toy line of Batman toys. See, I'd like to laugh at that a little bit more, but I'm still recovering from the heartbreak of having one of my all-time favorite TV shows canceled because apparently it didn't sell enough toys. Anyway, with all that being said, this is my first time checking out Batman Unlimited Animal Instincts. Now, first and foremost, let's all acknowledge that this is a Batman movie for a much younger Batman audience. We're talking baby's first Batman here. So if you're going into this looking for Batman to beat criminals to a bloody pulp, while those closest to him deliver heartfelt, meaningful speeches about just how important he is, then I think you may have tuned into the wrong Batman movie. Yet, for such a simple movie, they acquired some of the top talents in the realm of voice acting. Roger Craig Smith once again steps into the role of Batman and Bruce Wayne. He previously voiced the character in Arkham Origins to perfection, making himself sound like a younger version of Kevin Conroy's version of the character. But here, he's not asked to do an impression, so it does sound slightly different, and noticeably distinct. The guy who voiced Alfred in The Batman Show comes back to voice him here once again. Richard Epcar, the talent behind Mortal Kombat's Raiden and Kingdom Hearts' Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, lends his voice to the role of Commissioner Gordon. John DiMaggio, the voice of Bender, Jake the Dog, Marcus Phoenix, he does one hell of a job as Killer Croc. And then they got the voice of Static Shock and the Green Lantern, Phil Lamar himself, attached to the project as well. Silverback is being played by my man Holtz from Angel, who many of you may recognize as not Harvey Bullock from The Dark Knight. Batman Beyond himself, Will Friedle, steps into the role of Nightwing. Yuri Lowenthal, who a lot of people may know as Spider-Man, plays Red Robin. And the Penguin is voiced by Master Shake from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That is one hell of a lineup. And yet, not all of them are as great as you may think. This movie is every bit as campy as you'd expect it to be. The dialogue is simple and goofy, with puns taking priority.
Why? You should know by now that nobody likes a cheetah.
Oh, come over here and we can hiss and make up.
Characters give unasked, unearned explanations to move the plot forward in a clear and concise manner. The animation is also nondescript and fairly basic looking, but not bad, just feels bland, like there's no uniqueness to its identity. I mean, they look enough like the characters, they're just not incredibly detailed. And the details they do go about adding to the characters' outfits and attires, well, I'm not really a fan of. Like a yellow tint around the Batman logo? Why? Who is that for? And yeah, I know I shouldn't care, but I care immensely. I don't know how to feel about this Batman suit. I don't hate it, but I definitely don't love it. It kind of looks like Bruce Wayne running around in the Batman Beyond prototype. Or alternatively, like he raided his cousin's closet and made some alterations to the Batwoman suit. I feel a little bit similar about the Nightwing outfit. There's a part of me that really likes it, but then there's a part of me questioning the part of me that really likes it. It's not bad, but I think it could have used a few more concept alterations before it landed on a final design. I will, however, say, without any hesitation, that I hate the Penguin's design. Like, when did this little guy get so jacked? I should never, at any point in life, think that the vertically challenged man with a limp would be able to go toe-to-toe with the world's most violent protector. But honestly, like, I'm kind of afraid for Batman's safety. Like, I'm pretty sure not Danny DeVito could take him. I'm also definitely not feeling the brother eye monocle that he's working with either. Just not a big fan of that development, not for me personally. I think one of my biggest gripes with this is that it doesn't do a good job of explaining its universe or establishing its characters. The characters themselves, they aren't really characterized. We don't ever learn anything about any of the heroes or villains. They're just something to look at. You would think with how simple and basic the plot is, it would lead to the cast becoming the focal point. Maybe the plot's secondary and the runtime will be pushed forward by these contrasting, conflicting, larger-than-life personalities, but no. These over-the-top gods and monsters often come across as plain, with next to no indication as to what their personalities are supposed to be. It doesn't help that the lines are delivered so carelessly and passionless that it seems like next to nobody on the crew was putting in any effort. Which is weird because, again, you have a very talented group of people working for you, so why aren't they working with their actual talents? Everything about the finalized product feels like they're just reading through it the first time. Lines are delivered as if they have no meaning, and Batman specifically is noticeably monotone. I mean, granted, Batman is always a bit monotone, but it's noticeable. It is so noteworthy that I literally made a note of it here. Like I said before, I know I'm not the target audience, but if this was being made for any audience, maybe it would have been worthy of a little bit more effort. Additions of fun fan favorites like Green Arrow and The Flash do little to add anything of note to the movie, because as with all the rest of the characters, they're depicted poorly. Barry Allen is probably the closest to having an actual personality, so to speak, except his personality is that he's mildly annoying. But even in saying that, it's still incredibly underdeveloped and just overly dull, which is a word I'd use when describing a lot of this movie. Dull. I will say, I think the action, which often takes center stage, is usually pretty fair. There are sequences here and there that I vaguely find fun or aesthetically pleasing. There's also a moment or two in passing when watching this that the fight scenes actually got some reaction out of me. So I would probably consider this the highlight of the movie, but, you know, that's about it. And I'm admittedly really pushing to find a highlight. This movie is definitely gadget heavy. You definitely get the feeling that Batman has a solution for every situation that he could find himself in on hand already. There's so many times in this where a new danger would present itself, but then it would immediately be discarded because Bruce already brought the right toys to this proverbial playground. This Batman adapts to any given situation, and he does so without prep time. Plot points seem to happen at the convenience of the overall plot, things are largely underdeveloped or unexplained. Sometimes solutions are found a scene after finding and discussing whatever the problem is. There's a whole subplot with Man-Bat and Dr. Langstrom's inability to control the beast that he becomes. But then Red Robin's all like, "Hey, please don't be Man-Bat anymore, Doc. You remember when you weren't Man-Bat? Remember those days?" And then this guy's suddenly in control again, even though he's a giant Batman. And up until this point, there was no sense of control. Just one dude in a mask being like, hey, chill, bro. And he's like, oh, no, you're right. You're right. Good shit. But it's okay, because by the end, he's no longer a giant bat because of his sacrifice made in the middle of a tractor beam, which nullified the effects of the serum that turned him into a giant bat. Of course. So in all my talking in this video, I realize I've actually told you very little about the actual movie. But unfortunately, there isn't a whole lot to talk about here. This movie is slow-paced, uneventful, and worst of all, unengaging. I can't imagine a child being entertained by this, because I'm a grown-ass man, and I was having a hard time keeping focused. The movie's all about the villains in Batman's rogues gallery who have personas, banding together to start an old bad guy convention of some sort, in which they are aided by evil dinosaurs. Now that sounds like I'm making a joke, but that is basically what actually happens. Take what I just said, and stretch it out for an hour and 17 minutes, and that is what this movie is. Well, actually, Penguin starts a league with all of his animal adversaries to go on a spree of robberies that didn't see them take anything from the places that they robbed, but instead saw them leave things at the place of the robberies. And this is, of course, to use those coordinates to create a force field umbrella over their hideout while they draw a meteor to Gotham City. And I think someone said something about the asteroid having gold in it, because, yeah, that makes sense.
Huge asteroids may have brought gold and other precious metals to infant Earth, new research suggests.
But that's mostly it. It's been really challenging to sit here and make this video and try to go into detail about something that is so blatant and basic in everything that it does. Unless I sat here and gave you a direct play-by-play of what happens in the movie, I can't really go into any more detail. That's really all it has. I will say there are a couple of nice touches here and there, though. Like, for example, when Batman reprograms the evil AI dog, he renames it Ace. And that's kind of adorable. I like that. I also think the final shot of the heroes standing on the roof saying their goodbyes, watching them after a journey go their separate ways and continue on their good guy paths, is a nice touch. It's a nice way of ending the movie. But overall, I enjoyed this significantly less than I thought I would. And I would absolutely not recommend Batman Unlimited Animal Instinct. It's not horrendous or unwatchable, but it's just a whole lot of nothing. I hate to say it, but for me, this movie just felt like a total waste of time. But I hope for you that this video hasn't been.
Dummies! Dupes! Amateurs! I am shooting a viral video here! Enough! Save it for the video!
Here to talk to you about the sequel to the Batman movie you may have never seen, Batman Unlimited, Monster Mayhem. Now, I didn't really enjoy the previous entry, and I understand that it was obviously made for a much younger demographic, but I don't think that that's really a deciding factor when it comes to quality. Because there have been a lot of products made for a younger audience that a lot of older fans still really enjoy. I mean, if that wasn't the case, then bronies wouldn't exist. And Lord, do I really wish bronies didn't exist. Sorry, Alan, it is what it is.
What? Say something now. Twilight on top, bitch. Twilight on top.
But all in all, I'm more than ready to admit that this is much, much, much more entertaining than the last movie. And while it isn't something that I would actively go out of my way to watch otherwise, I still really enjoyed the ride this time around. This is a lot more fun than the first in its lineup. Honestly, it's not even worth attempting to compare the two. This is head and toes better, and I'm gonna tell you why. As previously stated, the movie is a much more overall entertaining product than the last entry. It feels like there's a little bit more story this time around. The plot is pretty coherent and pretty consistent, and otherwise there's just a lot of fun to be had all throughout. Of course, just like in the first film, comedic campiness takes center stage, but this time around the jokes feel like they pack more of a punch. And I found myself actually audibly laughing at some of the jokes this movie makes.
I'm just Pizza Man! Fire! You don't like pizza?
The camera adds 10 pounds.
Yes? How many cameras are on you? 10?
You gotta be kidding me.
It's really relieving to watch a funny Batman movie that's, well, actually funny. The jokes are both greater in terms of quantity and quality. There's a lot more of them, and they're a lot more funny than in its predecessor. Even the puns and gags that are a little bit lame aren't groan-worthy or sigh-inducing. They're still chuckle-worthy. So this is really an improvement. And what I love is that this movie is so unapologetically goofy that I can't help but laugh at it, and more importantly, laugh with it. The characters from the previous entry in the series return to this one, adding a few new faces along the way. Now, I've spoke previously about the voice cast in my last video, but as for the new additions, they're also mostly pretty great. Joining his Arkham Origins opposite is Troy Baker, reprising his role of the Joker. And I feel very similarly about him here, as I feel about Roger Craig Smith as Batman in this. In Arkham Origins, they were cast to deliver a direct impersonation of other interpretations of the characters. But here, because they're not being asked to do that, these roles feel like they are their own. While there are still definitely lingering elements of the past performances, it does feel and sound slightly different from their last time in the roles. Khary Payton, who will always be the definitive voice of the character for me, returns to the role of Cyborg. He's a very accomplished voice actor, but you may know him from his time in Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go. I also enjoy Cedric Yarbo's performance as Silas Stone. He may not have a lot to do, but his voice is very fitting for the character. And for a guy who's so versed in comedy, it's nice to hear him take on a more down-to-earth and serious role, even if that role isn't a comedic Batman movie. Fred Tatasciore once again brings to life the undead Solomon Grundy, just as he's done before in the Arkhamverse, the Injustice series, and Lego games. And the guy really does some fantastic work. Noel Fisher, who I'm a pretty big fan of from his time on Shameless, and of course, most importantly, his time in Max Keeble's Big Move? Underrated classic. Here, he gives a pretty forgettable performance as game developer Gogo Shoto. It's not his fault or anything, it's just, this isn't exactly a breakout role. There wasn't a lot asked of him, so there's not a lot for him to deliver. And if there was one particular character that stood out as a highlight in this movie, it would undoubtedly be Solomon Grundy, who is just consistently delivering comedy gold. And at times, pizzas. The depiction of the character is still completely true to the source. The only difference is now he's being played for laughs. And my man is getting them because he is hilarious.
Grundy, good actor.
When it comes to style, I've made it clear I didn't exactly love the art style of the first one. And that's mostly the same here. I don't find any of these newer models to be horrendously bad or anything, but they're just bland, blatant, and basic. The characters are so simple looking that they almost look like what would happen if the artist from Family Guy made a Batman cartoon. Like this Joker, look at this Joker. There's nothing really wrong with it, right? But there's not a whole lot of anything going on here. Because that is in fact the way the Joker looks, but it's such a standard by-the-numbers take on the character. It's not doing anything different, it's not trying anything new, it's just doing what has already been done, but significantly less impressive. All I can say is what a spectacularly unspectacular design of the Joker. You like that? That's what we call a callback. And this is also pretty much the case with almost everybody. Except for an exception or two. Both Solomon Grundy and Silver Banshee look like they've been ripped out of other continuities. They look like the models from the Justice League show, or even the Batman-Superman movies. And considering that they're the first two characters we see in this movie, it really threw me off for a minute or two there. This movie gaslit me into thinking I was somehow watching a movie outside of its continuity. As soon as it started playing, I was just thinking, did I somehow accidentally turn on Justice League Unlimited? There was also a scene a bit later in the runtime where Joker dons a hat, and I was getting some serious Batman the Animated Series vibes. I mean, we were late into the game here, so I knew what I was watching, but yeah, that looked familiar. One thing that really bugs me about this series, though, is that every single character looks like they were both born and raised inside a gym. Like, why are all these guys so jacked? This isn't a complaint in regards to the heroes, but a Scarecrow? Jonathan Crane? The frail psychotic psychiatrist? The man who hid behind a mask to induce fear in others because he lived his life in fear of others? I don't know, it just doesn't seem right. But then again, it doesn't feel nearly as wrong as Buff Penguin from the last movie. The plot is pretty simple, as this is a movie that's aimed at Robin-aged fans, and not Batman-jaded ones. And I definitely fall into the later category. The Joker, Scarecrow, Silver Banshee, Solomon Grundy, and Clayface form what has to be the most random assortment of antagonists to ever team together. However, you can't dispute the results, because the team actually takes down and takes over Gotham City. After the Joker unleashes a laughing computer virus, no, you did not mishear me, Joker unleashes a laughing computer virus that cuts off power to the city. What are even the words coming out of my mouth? The virus not only affects a lot of the team's gadgets, but also affects the robotic bike/Bat-Hound Ace and new team ally Cyborg. Joker promises the city temporary access to their televisions should they rat out the Bat, thus potentially turning the whole city against the heroes that are sworn to protect it. The League of Heroes Who Fight for Justice, you know, they should really come up with a name for that league. Managed to save the video game creator who helped the bad guys hack the city after they kidnapped him, because that was a plot point that happened. And while this genius can't shut down his virus, he instead creates a virus for the virus. Of course!
I deleted the virus!
The good guys round up the bad guys, Batman defeats the Joker in the virtual world, only to have him face him one more time in the real world, where he becomes a Mecha Joker, and then is promptly defeated once again, because that is kind of how these things go. The fight scenes are pretty basic but effective and entertaining. There's not any crazy choreographed battles, but there are some interesting sequences of events. I really like this nod and cameo of both the original Robin and Nightwing costumes. It's a really nice touch, and yet something so small was able to put a smile on my face. Wait, nobody clip that and take it out of context. But in all seriousness, this moment was very welcome fan service. I like that this Clayface is the horribly underused, underrated, and underutilized Basil Karlo, who is by far my favorite Clayface. And I also like that they play up the character's acting roots. Ultimately, this rendition of the character really feels like the prelude to what the Harley Quinn show would wind up doing with the character. And once again, this is another performance that's true to the source material, but just flipping the script and now playing it for laughs. I love that. I love when a continuity can take a character that you know and love, and not change anything about them, but just shine a different light on them. Maybe highlight some of the traits that come along with being them that are usually not focused on. I think that's brilliant. It's easy to do, but it's not often done. This movie doesn't make a whole lot of allusion to the first film, but I do think for the sake of continuity, it was a nice touch having Tim Drake fight off and then try to plead with a corrupted cyborg. In the last movie, he basically talked Man-Bat out of his natural instinct. And this time around, he's attempting to debug a former Teen Titan using a heart-to-heart. And also, I know I mentioned it in my last video, but I still really love what they did with Ace. It's a different take on the character, and it's also kinda cute. I mean, personally, I prefer the Batman Beyond treatment, but this is nice too. I don't know if it ranks as my second favorite depiction of the Ace character, because I think Crypto the Superdog had the most adorable version of the character I've ever seen, but it's definitely riding up into the number 3 spot, for sure. For sure. Joker taking over the city and crowning himself Emperor Joker, and then taking to the virtual world to alter Batman, is very reminiscent of the Emperor Joker story. It's a nice reference, and I like that they altered previously created content to better fit in with the movie's narrative. Of course, there are some things about this that do get under my skin, though. Like when we see Clayface can not only transform into different people, but different animals and shapes as well. The guy literally becomes a dinosaur, and then 30 seconds later sits in the car silently when Solomon Grundy tells Joker that there's no room for him in their escape vehicle. Like, you can literally transform into an ant. There is no reason Joker had to plan for an Uber. That's just being selfish. Another thing that bothers me, Nightwing breaks mirrors only to have it trigger fear gas. And then to solve his problem, he breaks more mirrors. Like, why would you expect any other outcome? How have you not learned your lesson yet? I mean, of course, because this is Batman Unlimited, it ends up working out for him. But yeah, that was a dumb plan. Seeing Joker ride around in an ice cream truck makes sense, but I can't help but think of another psychotic, murderous lunatic clown driving an ice cream truck. I've definitely seen this before. And Red Robin feeding Clayface fast-acting cement does seem like it would kill him. Like that's a murder, Robin. Like that's against the code. I'm pretty sure even if a man is made out of clay, he is still a man nonetheless. Bruce, you gotta have a talk with this kid. He's just out here doing things that I don't even know. I don't even know where to begin. But hey, this movie isn't for me. It's for my kids, which I don't have. So it is what it is. And honestly, it's not bad. Now, I know I already said that this installment was better than the previous one, but I want to emphasize that I'm not just judging this on a curve. I'm not tolerating this movie. I'm not saying that this is a good movie in comparison to the last one. I actually enjoyed this movie. Whereas with the last one, I did not whatsoever. I did not at all. But surprisingly, yes, I am quite fond of Batman Unlimited Monster Mayhem. If you're into Batman projects that take themselves less seriously, I highly recommend checking this one out. You won't be sorry that you did.
Can't say I expected to see that today. Can't say I expected to see any of this today.
Come on, guys. This is Gotham.
And I've recently talked about the Batman movie you've never seen, and the Batman sequel you've never seen. So why not complete it with the Batman threequel you've never seen? But I'm not going to call this video that, because no one really knows what a threequel is. So this is the Batman trilogy you've never seen. So if you've actually never seen part 1 and 2, check the comment section below before watching this. I highly suggest checking them out before. But with all that being said, let's get into Batman Unlimited, Mechs vs. Mutants. Right off the bat, pun intended, it's more than a little different from the 2 movies that came before it. We start off and immediately we're shown Robin. And not Red Robin, and not Nightwing former Robin, but Robin. Meaning that this Robin is, of course, my least favorite boy wonder, Damian Wayne. Alright, that's it, turn it off, I've seen enough. This is an immediate downgrade from the movie that came before it. Why is this kid here? Why is this kid everywhere? I just can't escape him. In all seriousness, it's kind of weird how he shows up and we're not even introduced to him. The movie's just like, he's here, deal with it, you figure it out. No hello, no metaphoric handshake. They're just throwing us in there with strangers now. He's never had a part in the predecessors. He's never even been mentioned or name dropped. He was never seen or spoken of, and now he's the primary focus of the film. In actuality, I surprisingly don't mind this Damian Wayne. I find this performance to be pretty grounded. They kept elements of the source material in the character's passing dialogue, but they've kind of made him feel more like a person and less like a former prodigy. He's a work in progress, but this version of the character is wise enough to know that. He knows he's not where he needs to be. He's willing to change. He wants to get better. He's not standoffish, and the battles that he has in the Batcave aren't with his father, they're within himself. Who are you and what did you do with the actual Damian Wayne? You are way too self-aware and normal to be him. I actually kinda like this iteration of the character, but I'm also willing to admit it's probably not the perfect representation of that character. He's missing the character's angst and attitude and a lot of his flair. He still in a lot of ways feels like Damian Wayne, but it feels like a much more mature and way dialed back Damian Wayne. His sudden appearance though is still a little bit jarring, and that's far from the only subject like that. Heroes we know and kinda like from the last installments make their return, including Flash, Green Arrow, and Nightwing. I find them charming in their own right, and I like that this movie somehow managed to take 3 sarcastic characters, stick them side by side, but still make each one feel distinct. When the movie actually is keeping us up to date on its canon, it's providing callbacks and continuing story branches of characters I would have otherwise thought served no more purpose. Like having Dr. Langstrom, the former Man-Bat, serve as the head of Wayne Enterprises Research and Development is a cute little cameo, and it shows that Bruce does truly do all he can for these people. He doesn't want to beat them up, he wants to better their lives. That's a true depiction of the character's compassion, and I, for one, am here for it. But much more importantly, Nightwing finally got a new suit and a haircut, which is something elderly people used to tell me I needed all the time. Except, I'm a rebel, so I went bald and cut off all the sleeves to my t-shirts. Take that, society! We also follow up with the movie's main menace, who is the same as the first films. I'm talking, of course, about the Penguin. Since being sent to the Arctic, he's teamed up with Mr. Freeze. Because, ice. But this Mr. Freeze is a little bit different from the one that you might be used to. I mean, I guess not aesthetically if you watch Batman Beyond, because he's just basically rocking his suit from that, as well as some mean Squirrel Squad shades. What a man who is more of a winter than he is a summer is doing with sunglasses on? I don't know, that's Batman Beyond me. Not the point. This Mr. Freeze is a lot more blatantly villainous than the one that you might be used to. And also, a lot more stupid than the one that you're probably used to. I mean, he's still a genius, but socially, this guy is just not picking up what Penguin is putting down. Freeze and Penguin seem to have a very strange relationship. Penguin clearly doesn't like his living situation with his igloo roommate. He's openly annoyed by his mere existence, but doesn't seem to have a way out of this living situation. He can't return to civilization, and Mr. Freeze is just telling him he's better off without it. Freeze subtly but adamantly denies his request for freedom until it's beneficial to him. So what's that about? Did Mr. Freeze just want a friend? Because that's kind of the polar bear opposite of who Mr. Freeze is as a character. They never get into his origin story, but they just allude to his sadness. So I don't think I'm really personally into this version of Mr. Freeze. But I will tell you this. The Penguin's penguin, Buzz, downright adorable. Absolute show stealer. Never before has a character done so little and had it meant so much. Honestly, it almost completely makes up for the inclusion of Damian. It doesn't, but it almost does. Buzz is a star, okay? He had the cutest and funniest moments in the whole movie. Especially this one sent me.
I'm naming him head of security.
Nice to meet you, boss?
Like the previous 2 entries, there's baddies and baddies galore, including some old friends, some new friends, and even a Bane.
Wayne, I presume.
Yes, and you must be General Sam Lane.
You've done your research.
After breaking into Arkham, as opposed to breaking out of Arkham, the cold couple walk through the halls of the asylum where they pass a plethora of cameos. It's there we see some of Batman's rogues gallery, including Cheetah from the first movie, Joker from the second movie, and new names such as Two-Face, Hush, and the Mad Hatter. But all of those characters are passed up in favor of the Terrible Two assembling a team of baddies that include the likes of Killer Croc from the first movie, Clayface from the second movie, Bane, and Chemo, who I shit you not is an actual villain. And this is the first villain in any Batman movie that I've never seen and never even heard of before. I knew nothing about this character. I didn't even know of its existence before watching this. And I am thoroughly impressed, shocked, confused, and maybe even a little bit embarrassed that I've learned of a villain I've never known before from watching Batman Unlimited.
Stay humble.
This inner circle instantly has infighting as Croc and Bane are at odds. Because Bane thinks Croc sold him out to the GCPD. First off, Croc, if true, snitches loose scales. Remember that. And secondly, when did this happen? You two didn't even interact in the last movies. Bane, you weren't even in the last movie. Did this happen sometime in between them? Are these movies expanding their lore and building a full-blown Batman Unlimited universe? Well, yes. And no. But also yes. As it turns out, to my surprise, there is in fact a Batman Unlimited web series that was tied into this trilogy.
Don't feign ignorance, you gadfly!
Mr. Freeze and Penguin recruit the villains so that Bane, Chemo, and Clayface can essentially be experimented on to donate prospects of their genetic makeup to Killer Croc, so that he could turn into Godzilla. Wow, what a sentence. Firstly, I commend you, movie, for thinking outside the box and trying to do something new. But also, you're doing too much. You already got a roided up professional wrestler, a mud puddle man, a killer snowman, a sneeze incarnate, and a guy with a limp, and you couldn't figure out something to do with them? You really just need to bring Kaiju into this? I want to note right now that when I was scripting this, instead of Killer Snowman, what I wrote was a pissed off Frosty, which kinda just sounds like I accidentally invented a racial slur against white people, so do with that what you will. Things go from bad to worse when Penguin tricks the Iceman, turning on him and giving Freeze's formula to Clayface, Bane, and Chemo. Except Croc was a test subject who the formula was specifically altered for, so there's some unintended side effects for the others, such as Clayface having the ability to shoot fire, and Chemo having the ability to shoot water and ice. This whole team is unstable. And I mean that in a multitude of ways, as Bane and Croc decide to spend their time as giants having a clash of the Titans, looking to settle their bad blood by shedding each other's. But then Batman and Green Arrow fight off their growing enemies in mech suits and wait, hold up. This is just Pacific Rim. This is just Batman Pacific Rim. I mean, I'm not complaining about it. I just wasn't anticipating it. I wish somebody would have told me. If somebody said, hey V, Batman Pacific Rim, I would have been there, but I wanted to be prepped. Just throw this premise on somebody without alerting them. Was this Batman Ninja? I wasn't ready for that shit. As always, these fights are highly entertaining and stand out as a highlight of the runtime. Mr. Freeze, pissed about getting the cold shoulder, returns to help the heroes, as Mr. Freeze usually does. Freeze deeply regrets his involvement in his plan, as he usually does, and exclaims that he was simply manipulated by the Penguin, which he usually isn't. That's a weird creative choice, because Mr. Freeze post Mr. Freezing, I feel would have been both too intelligent and far too jaded for any of this. The guy didn't trust anybody, and I find it really hard to believe that the Penguin of all people would be the exception to that. This movie does make some surprising references. Like when Bane makes mention of breaking Batman's back. Oh, like really? Batman Unlimited, is that really the place for this? And I could be wrong, and I probably am. But Batman's mech suit also reminded me a little bit of the one that Jim Gordon used in the comics when he was Batman. Time-wise, it all adds up. Gordon became Batman just a year prior to this movie's release. So, yeah, it could be. But it could also just be me and looking too deep into something that's really not all that deep. Because after all, if this was a reference, it would have the classic Bugs Bunny ears that are on the Batbot in the comics. This movie isn't perfect, though. it does have some unintentionally awkward or just off moments from time to time. And sometimes time after time.
But what is... Oh, I see. Brilliant. He's right, it could work.
A few moments later.
Can we trust him? No. Maybe.
But overall, yeah, I really like this movie. I like the characters, I like their interactions, and I like the story they were all a part of. It was cute, and I really enjoyed the ending. Penguin gets a new roommate, as does Buzz. But it turns out better for the Penguin than it does for the Penguin. Nightwing still can't stand Flash for some reason. I don't know, that plot point always felt a little bit off for his character for me. Even in this continuity, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And Clayface even lives to set up for a sequel that will never come. If I had to give one word to describe this movie, I think it would be...
enjoyable.
I highly recommend checking it out yourself if you haven't already. And with all that being said, if you like this video, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying...
You might as well see the show.
I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
Whoa, all right, calm down now. Let's get into this thing.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.